In the United States, deportation can look like this: swift, coordinated, and often decisive. In Australia, boats are stopped at sea and turned back before they ever reach the shore. Across Europe, countries like France and Germany process removals with a speed the UK can only envy. And then, there's Britain, where deportations are tangled in delays, appeals, and political wrangling. A system under pressure, a public divided, and a government struggling to keep pace. Into this fragile debate enters the story of one man. Hadush Gerberslasie Kebatu, an asylum seeker who arrived on a small boat, and within days of setting foot in the UK, committed a crime that shocked the community. On the 7th and the 8th of July, 2025, in the town of Epping, Essex, two separate incidents changed the local mood almost overnight. Hadush Gerberslasie Kebatu, an Ethiopian national who had crossed the channel by small boat just days earlier, was charged with multiple offences. Attempted sexual assault on a child aged just 14. Sexual assault of that same 14-year-old. Sexual assault of an adult woman. And harassment. In September, Kebatu was convicted and sentenced to 12 months in prison. What might have been another line in the endless column of court reports instead struck a nerve. It wasn't only about one man's actions. The case inflamed a national argument about asylum hotels, deportation, and the fragile trust between local communities and the government. The day news of Kebatu's conviction broke, attention turned to the Bell Hotel, where he had been housed as part of the Home Office accommodation program. Demonstrations erupted immediately, some small and peaceful, others attracting larger crowds and far-right activists. Police were deployed to prevent disorder. Local residents described a tense atmosphere, while national media highlighted the visibility of asylum accommodation and the questions it raises about community safety. The debate is not confined to feelings. The Home Office has faced scrutiny for the cost of temporary housing. Hotel stays for asylum seekers are reported to cost hundreds of pounds per night. In Epping, as elsewhere, critics point to taxes transporting residents to medical appointments and the perceived inequities when British nationals struggle to access affordable housing in the same towns. The Kebatu case, therefore, became more than a criminal prosecution. It became a symbol of the challenges facing Britain's asylum system, balancing safety, legal obligations, and public perception. To understand why the Kebatu case captured public attention, it helps to look at the wider system. By June 2025, more than 32,000 asylum seekers were being housed in temporary hotels across the UK. The Home Office also faced a backlog of over 100,000 unresolved asylum claims, a record high. Daily hotel costs for housing asylum seekers run into millions, and there are additional expenditures, including transport to medical appointments, welfare support, and security. News reporting has highlighted examples such as taxi bills exceeding £600 for individual journeys. These figures, combined with the visibility of hotels in residential areas, fueled public concern and political debate. When a high-profile criminal case involves someone in temporary accommodation, the story moves quickly from a court report to a national discussion about the pressures on the asylum system, community safety, and the taxpayer burden. Within days of Kebatu's conviction, politicians highlighted a recently negotiated arrangement with France, the so-called one-in, one-out pilot. Under the agreement, a migrant who has exhausted their legal appeals can be returned to France, while a vetted asylum seeker may be accepted in return. Immigration Minister Shabana Mahmood publicly praised the scheme, tweeting a short video to announce that the first return had taken place.
For years, smuggling gangs have run illegal and deadly small boat channel crossings. Their pitch to migrants was the false promise that if you cross our border illegally, you can stay here. Today, we have dealt a blow to those gangs. In August, the government struck a historic agreement with the French government. Now, 8 weeks later, the first forced removals of small boat migrants are underway. In return, we will soon accept the first legal migrants into this country, following strict security and eligibility checks. When I became Home Secretary, I said I will do whatever it takes to secure our borders. Today marks an important and historic first step.
But critics argue the system is misleading. Daily channel crossings continue, and France may only accept selected cases. For every one person the UK sends back, another may still arrive. Legal experts and commentators warn that, in practice, the deal addresses a tiny fraction of total arrivals and does little to reduce long-term pressure on hotels, local communities, or the asylum backlog. The political debate is intense, and the public is divided. Many ask, is this pilot a genuine solution, or just a symbolic gesture? Tell us in the comments, if the UK sends one back, does France simply send another? How feasible is the one-in, one-out plan? Globally, governments take very different approaches to irregular migration. In Australia, Operation Sovereign Borders intercepts boats at sea, turning them back before they reach shore. The policy has dramatically reduced arrivals but has drawn sustained criticism from human rights groups over offshore detention and treatment of asylum seekers. In the United States, ICE enforcement focuses on swift identification and deportation of those without legal status. The system is highly structured and politically contentious, with critics highlighting heavy-handed tactics but supporters praising its speed. France and other European countries enforce returns more systematically than the UK. Failed asylum seekers may be escorted out quickly, with administrative procedures completed in days rather than months. Yet, as the one-in, one-out pilot shows, even cooperative agreements have limits. France may accept some returns, but daily channel crossings continue, leaving Britain with the bulk of arrivals. Turning back boats in the English Channel is not simply a logistical challenge, it's a legal minefield. The United Kingdom remains bound by the European Convention on Human Rights, ECHR. Article 2 protects the right to life, while Article 3 forbids inhuman or degrading treatment. The 1951 Refugee Convention also enshrines the principle of non-refoulement, preventing governments from returning people to places where they face danger or persecution.
Guy comes here from the Congo in 2008, illegally applies for asylum. A few years later, the case gets heard. He's told he can stay because he's fathered a child, therefore he has a right to a family life. Fast forward to 2020. He has sexually assaulted his stepdaughter and two of her cousins. He does 3 years in Munich, comes out. We still can't deport him because of the European Convention on Human Rights, Article 8. He still has a right to a family life. He's staying in this country and going back to the same household in which the very same young stepdaughter that he has sexually abused is living there. If this doesn't show you what we have to get free of this nonsense of a European court, guys, if you're not convinced by this, nothing will ever convince you.
Migration is rarely a simple story of cost or benefit, it is a complex balance. Many migrants contribute directly to critical sectors. The NHS, care homes, construction, and hospitality rely heavily on their labour. Without them, staff shortages and service gaps would be acute. For some local residents, the contrast between publicised migrant support and their own housing challenges fuels frustration. This is why cases like Kebatu's resonate beyond the courtroom. Why do protests over asylum hotels and high-profile cases like Kebatu's feel so large? Partly, it is about visibility. A hotel in a high street, police cordons, and a criminal case capture attention far more than statistics. Political actors and commentators amplify these stories, making individual incidents feel like systemic failures. But the data tells a more nuanced story. Small boats account for only a fraction of total migration, while legal asylum claims and family reunifications constitute the majority. The UK has accepted tens of thousands of asylum seekers in recent years, most of whom enter legally and integrate into communities. Understanding this gap between perception and reality is crucial. The public sees disorder and headline-grabbing crimes. Policymakers must balance these fears with evidence-driven decisions about capacity, legal obligations, and long-term integration. A measured perspective avoids panic while still responding to legitimate safety concerns. Britain is at a crossroads. The Kebatu case illustrates how quickly a local incident can become a test of national policy. We want to hear from you. Is the UK system fixable from within, or does it need bolder change? Comment below with your thoughts, and if you value fact-led reporting, subscribe to True Crime Uncovered UK.